All right, welcome to another episode of The More You Know. Today, I'm joined with Natalie. Natalie, can you give us a brief introduction?
Hi, Brian. Thanks for having me. I can. I am Natalie. I am a conscious life coach who has a focus in health and wellness, and I am a very, very big cannabis advocate.
Interesting. Um, I also have a friend who is trying to become a life coach as well. I actually did a podcast with him. I think he was like number five,
Hmm.
and I'm always interested in hearing people's backgrounds of like when he was telling me about how he started to get into more awarenessness and more like health and wellness awareness consciousness. It had to do something with his surgery. What made you get into the realm of consciousness, health and wellness, and being more aware?
Well, it's one of those things where I think we all have a certain baseline level of awareness, and then it's up to us to build upon that. For me personally, in my own journey, I used to work a pretty corporate job, and it was just starting to take its toll on me, as you can imagine.
Hmm.
And when I took a step back and looked at what I was doing, I realized the work I was doing might not have been the best idea for me long term, and it was just affecting more than it was affecting me more than any other job has. I think it was affecting, my mental health, my emotional health, and just zapping all of my energy from me. And so I wanted to find out what I could do to kind of curb that. So I quit that job and I went on some crazy journey to try and arrive here. And this is where I'm at now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like corporate jobs and just getting a job in general is really taxing. I'm 1 year out of college now, and I've been in the workforce for a year, and I'm already feeling like the effects of it because my days are so jam packed now because
Yeah.
I was in health and fitness and working out, so working like 8 to 4, getting home at 5, and then having to work out and then make dinner. Then you have
Oh, yeah. You're
you,
zapped.
like burnout is a real thing, and
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people get caught up in like the noise of life, and I think that
Mm,
not a lot of people give themselves time to themselves. And
yes.
um I take it that you do yoga or meditation or both.
So before I get into any of this, I've always been kind of interested in anything that builds on your emotional intelligence or helps de-stress you. I was getting really sick for about a decade, and to the point where I thought I had some kind of cancer because, when you type anything in WebMD,
Oh,
it
it's the
tells you
worst.
you have cancer. And so I was like, "Oh God, what's wrong with me?" And so I had all these tests done, and they stuck a tube down my throat with a camera because I was just getting so sick. I couldn't eat anything anymore, and I was to the point where I wanted to just have shakes. I'm a huge foodie, but had resigned to just being like, okay, shakes are what I will live on for the rest of my life because I cannot keep anything down. And when the results came back, they said, there's nothing wrong with you. Do you work in a high stress environment? And I was like, no, no, not at all. But I worked for a Fortune 500 company that I had been working for the last 6 or 7 years, working my way up that amazing corporate ladder. And I didn't realize that I was basically internalizing all of the stress that I had because I had a team working under me. I had a lot of people who depended on me, and I couldn't crack. That was basically my mentality. I never give up. I'm very determined, and I didn't want anyone to think that I was stressed because I didn't recognize that I was stressed.
Hmm.
I thought I was perfectly fine. I'm like, yeah, I do this. Yeah, it's tough, but it's fun and it's my dream job. And the doctor said, look, it's all in your head. Whatever's going on with you is all in your head. And I think it's stress. And I was like, what? That's crazy. And I sat and I really thought about it. And literally since that day, about 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, I have not gotten sick once since then. And so I
Oh wow.
immediately did a 180. And once I realized it was in my head, I'm very much of the mind, mind over matter. And so I knew that if it was up to me, that I wasn't going to have this issue anymore. And I started to explore more about how to de-stress. I got into meditation and hypnosis, and I do some forms of yoga, but that's not necessarily a normal like daily plan for me. I do it as needed. I'm not a fanatic about it. I know some people, it's a part of their regimen and the routine. For me, it's more as needed.
Gotcha. Yeah, I definitely get that. like even being even being I don't want to call myself an entrepreneur, but like trying to
Mm-hmm.
make your own brand, like there's so much that you have to do yourself.
Oh,
So
yes.
for me, still working 8 to 4, 9 to 5 job, coming home and still having to worry. Like for me,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm like always in a state of worry because
Oh, yeah.
because I always feel like okay, I'm done with work, done with my workout, but now it's 7:30. I'm eating dinner, but then I think about like, wow, I should be working on my blog, I should be working on my podcast, I should be
Mm-hmm.
making some marketing content. But at the end of the day, my mind is just running through these thoughts, and
Oh, yeah.
but physically, I'm just exhausted. It's
Yeah.
just like for me it it's been hard trying to get over that. And I talked to my friend Connor. He was telling me all about being more aware and making time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started doing yoga and meditation, giving
Mm-hmm.
myself at least 30 to 45 minutes each night to myself.
Yeah.
uh
It
Not
sounds
thinking.
radical.
Yeah, because like people think, like people don't think of this stuff.
No.
And when I was having that time to myself, just like me with my thoughts, like I just felt more relaxed because
Mm-hmm.
I mean like I'm giving my body the respect that it deserves, and kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
break away from any type of stress. It's more with my breathing now.
Mm.
And go on.
Oh no, I was gonna say you're
uh,
describing what I think a lot of people have and they don't realize it. It's what we call monkey mind. You know, we're in
Monkey
a yeah, we're monkey
mind.
minded because we have a very overstimulating and hyper connected environment that we are always a part of. You think about it. We're always being called to our phone for an email, a text, a phone call. We want to watch something. There's a Netflix special that's coming out. We want to see when we can get tickets to such and such. And so this can help us really slip into a state of chronic stress, which is what
Mhm.
you're describing. And so over time, you'll feel overwhelmed. This will lead to more anxiety, and that's going to just take your attention away from anything else. And that's why you get stuck in that thought loop where you're just thinking about what you might be missing on or what you should be doing or other things that you should be focusing on. And this just state of heightened arousal and stress sensitivity, that's what we call monkey mind. I get a lot of clients who come to us with that because their thoughts and their behaviors just become driven by more primitive parts of the brain that govern your emotional responses rather than a more human part of the brain that directs your focus and attention.
Mhm. And yeah, for me, that one thing that helped me like cope, like kind of like deal with it, was giving time to myself. Are there other methods that you would say that could help with it?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of techniques you can do to kind of, as we say, quiet the monkey mind because when worry gets in the way of your work or, just relaxing, it's important to find a way to shift away from that. And so you can minimize multitasking. I know a lot of people really want to say like they're good multitaskers, and I used to say that as well. But I was I was finally proven that no one actually is good at multitasking. There's no such
Hmm.
thing as multitasking. As soon as you split your attention between more than one task, you are just doing something at a lower capacity. And so you really want to minimize the multitasking. We're hardwired to pay close attention to potential threats in our environment, which was from noise and movement and change in lightings and things like that. And so sometimes your home or your office can trigger these things and it'll hit those same cues for you in your mind. So you can stop, multitasking if possible. Get out and move is a great thing to do if you like running or jogging or walking or anything or dancing. Get out and move. If you're worried about quieting your mind, meditation is a great, great thing. I know a lot of people try it once or twice and they say, like, it didn't work for me. And I tell them it's the same thing as a medicine. If you're prescribed a medicine, you don't expect it to work the first day that you get it. It's something that's supposed to be prolonged and built on. And so meditation is challenging at first for a lot of people because we're not so used to slowing down and paying attention to our breathing and really sitting with our thoughts undisturbed without interruptions from the phone, the TV, our pets, our kids, our spouses, whatever else. And music is a great thing as well if you can listen to music.
Gotcha. And when you speak of meditation, I know that there's many definitions of like people think of meditation as in you always have to cross your legs and play that like zen type of music in the background. Like I know for me when I first tried it like in college, that's what I would do. I would go on YouTube, type in meditation zen music, and it'd just be
Hmm.
like that like gong in the background, and then I'm like
Yeah,
yes, yes.
that classic.
But like what I've learned is that meditation doesn't always have to be that. What
No.
and then uh, I know a lot of people go toward that like definition. What are some ways that do you think people can try today that can help them meditate? Or what's a
So
good
I
starter to get into meditation?
I guess it's kind of one of those things where Hollywood has perverted the notion of meditation and people who meditate.
Mm,
Meditation isn't really about becoming a different person or a new person or even a better person. It's really about training in awareness and getting a healthy sense of perspective. You're really not trying to turn off your thoughts or feelings. A lot of people I work with say, like, well, I don't know how to stop thinking. I don't know how to quiet my mind. And I don't know how to, and that's really not what you're doing. You're kind of being aware of the thoughts that come into your mind. So you're letting them come into your mind, you're acknowledging them, and then you're releasing them so that the next thoughts, if you have more, come to you. So you're learning to observe your thoughts without judgment. And eventually, you may get to a place where those thoughts don't intrude your meditation spaces as much as it did before. I know in the very beginning, I have a very busy mind, very type A. It was hard for me to just shut the heck up and
mhm.
meditate. And so I kept being like, oh, I can't be quiet. And it's one of those things where you don't have to be quiet. You just have to acknowledge what you're thinking and then let that thought pass. Don't dwell on it too much. Don't try and find a solution to it. Just acknowledge, that thought's come into my mind. And okay, I've thought about it and now I'm moving on to the next one.
Got you. And it makes me think, well, like whenever I think of meditation now, I've been listening to frequency musics. um
Mm.
I can't think like are you familiar with frequency musics?
Like binaural beats.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so addicted to binaural beats. I don't know what it is about binaural beats that seem to really speak to me. The great thing is because there are two tones, one in each ear, it's going to be a slightly different frequency, and your brain will process the beats at different frequencies. And so that's really what the binaural beat is. Everyone responds differently to binaural beats. There are several different brainwave states that they send you into. But
Mhm.
for me, this has been the quickest way for me to feel like I'm getting into a meditative state. When I tried listen to, just like you, the gong music and the chanting and things like that,
Yeah.
I kind of felt silly and I was like, this is like kind of comical that I'm doing this. And once I stumbled upon binaural beats and hypnosis and things like that, for me, it just opened up a whole entire new world, personally.
How do you listen to these? Do you go on YouTube and listen to them, or do you have like a designated app?
So I actually make a lot of my own binaural beats now that I know the different
Oh, really?
frequencies. So I make a lot of the delta waves because that's really good for deep sleep, for pain relief, and kind of it makes you feel like you're healing. And the other ones I love are the alpha ones because those help with focus. Those are for stress reduction, helps with the positive thinking. I use a lot of those, the alpha or the beta, when I'm doing the meditation. So I play around with them a lot, and they're just endless amounts of them on YouTube. There are some when I'm too lazy to like look through my library, I go and I see like, hey, what's what's going on, and I will just type in sleep binaural beats or meditation binaural beats focus or creativity or whatever, and I'll see whatever has the most views and go from there. I'm not picky.
Gotcha. Yeah, because my friend sent me their solfeggio frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
I've been listening to those, but I like for me, I don't know if it's beneficial to listen to them on YouTube because I don't know if the audio is
Mm,
coming through this like at the right frequencies through my
right.
earbuds. So I don't know if there's like a other beneficial way of listening to it to get the full effect.
There are a couple of websites, and I don't know any off the top of my head, but I can share them with you later. There's a couple of websites where you can go, and it's kind of like the color checker that you can use to check to make sure that the colors are coming through the same on your laptop. You can do it with the sounds as well, so you can make sure that the frequency is what it's supposed to be. One of the things I like doing with binaural beats is I like having some gamma frequencies going while I'm working because it's really good for a high level of cognition and memory recall, and it's really got your awareness up. I don't know if you're like me, but there's certain binaural beats when I hear them, the frequency is just like, oh, and I just can't. I'm like, no, that's too high or that's too, etc. And so there's some binaural beats that I hear and I just they don't, they're not appealing to me.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. Because in that video that I watch all of the time, it's like cut up into like segments of like different
Mhm.
frequencies and like what they're supposed to be used for. And sometimes I try to like mix it up sometimes, and
Mhm.
I'm like sitting there for like 2 minutes, and I'm like, I'm not really feeling this one.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not getting lost in it.
Yeah, that's the best thing when you kind of forget you're listening to the binaural beats. And sometimes I'll just turn them on really low and I'll forget that I'm listening to them. And I get some of my best writing and work done when I'm listening to those gamma beats.
Yeah, that's how I am. I can't work with like music that has lyrics in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that when I would study in college, I would just listen to classical music in the background.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But with
That's good.
these with these binaural beats, like a lot of people may not believe in them. I want to say because like when you try to explain it to them, they like
It sounds crazy.
it does sound crazy. But for me, I'm I was so open to like trying what my friend was talking about. So I was like, let's see what he's talking about. And I don't know if it's just a placebo effect, like I'm tricking my mind into thinking of it, but like whenever I do listen to these beats, like it's calming me. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's kind of just the main thing that I want to take away when I
Yeah.
do meditate or when I do try to like get my mind to stop like running.
Yeah. And I think, it's one of those things where you said some great things in what you just said. You do need to have an open mind for these things to work. I'm such a nerd and I would like to know how everything works before I get involved with it. And so I looked at a lot of studies and I found some results and some dissertations about, before and after brainwave synchronization, which is what happens when you're listening to the binaural beats. And so meditation and using those kind of beats after 15 or 25 minutes, it shows that it balances both brain hemispheres and allows them to work in sync. It means your neurocommunication of your thoughts and your responses, they all multiply and they're basically firing at their highest performance rate. You get more integrated system, you get to optimize your mental and emotional health compared to someone who doesn't listen to these regularly or doesn't try it. You'll see that there's unbalanced brainwave patterns with weak functions. That's what makes us prone to anxiety and depression and just weakened health, mental health overall. You mentioned the placebo effect. I am so with you there. My thinking has been, who cares if it's a placebo effect, but you still are getting the benefits, then why does it matter?
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, if people tried to ask me for like scientific stuff behind it, I can't really back that up because like all I can say is that when I listen to this stuff, it makes me feel calm. So like I don't
Hmm.
know if the same thing's gonna happen to you. You might have to find your own beat or whatever to listen to make yourself calm down. But I have
Yeah.
friends who are into this stuff. They told me about it. I tried it and I found the one that works for me.
As far as I know, the science is literally in the beats. So all you're doing with the binaural beats is it's sound. It's kind of the same way a high pitched ringing is going to pretty much annoy most people, and very higher frequencies that we can't hear that aren't made for our ears but are for pets and things like that have no effect on us. So the science is actually in the beats themselves. They're just going to show your theta brainwaves as you're going through the process of listening to a new sound. So binaural beats, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor or anything, should theoretically work for everyone on some level. Again, your tones that you find preferable might be different than the tones that I find preferable, but they're both going to do something to our theta brainwaves because it's our brain registering these two sounds and trying to kind of calibrate those in our mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And to put this in a way, to probably put this in a way that people can understand, is that you can just kind of picture this. I feel like just comparing it to a ASMR. I feel like because different
Mm-hmm.
people like different ASMRs. Some people like
Mm-hmm.
those mukbang ASMRs when they hear people eat. Some
The
people like
eating
hearing,
one, yeah.
yeah. Firstly, I can't do it because like
No, me either.
it just gives me
It
like the
makes me feel
cringes.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Because it sounds like they're being so sloppy. But
Hmm.
that's exactly what I'm saying. So that doesn't appeal to us, but obviously it appeals to some people because those things are going through the roof in popularity. And so it's really going to be a preference. But the thing is, you will have a reaction one way or another. It will either be neutral, positive, or negative. And so you can explore with those beats and kind of figure out which nerve signal convergence is going to happen in your brainstorm, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah. This conversation makes me really want to connect you with my friend Connor. I would love to get you and Connor both on my podcast because he has been really into all of this that we're talking about, and he's the one that showed me all of it. And I would love to just hear you two just talk about it and just share your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I really urge anyone who's listening, like if you've never tried binaural beats, if you heard about them and you think they're weird, you owe it to yourself to try something because it's not really going to hurt you. There's nothing detrimental. You may find an unpleasant sound and be like, that one's not for me. I don't like that. But there's nothing that really is going to be, a short term or a long term effect that's going to be detrimental to you. And I wish that I had found out about these things earlier than I did because I've been using them for the last, I'd say, 8 or 10 years now. And I only recently started to integrate them with hypnosis, and the effects have just been really amazing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking on top of that, like finding that beat, like my friend, he sent me all this like beats of like how to like these beats will boost your confidence or give
Mm-hmm.
you positive energy. But like there is one, I'll never forget it. I was trying to meditate to it, and then it just starts becoming like I'm in like a scary movie. So like I'm like really
Oh,
calm
yeah.
right now, and then it just gets intense, and then
It
I'm just like,
changes.
am I in a scary movie right now? Like what's gonna happen? So like I had
Yeah,
to
it's
like
those ones that
I
are go
couldn't do
like
it.
boom, 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 and yeah,
Yes.
like really, yeah.
I couldn't do it.
And
I
you
couldn't do it. I got too scared and I had to turn it off.
that happens to me too. There are some where I everything's cool for the first like 10 minutes and then it will just change to a different frequency and I'm like, what the hell? And like you, when it feels the best way I can describe it is intense, where you're like looking over your shoulder, like what's happening?
Yeah.
Um be-
Oh
so
god.
yeah, you really need to find the right one and avoid the scary ones for yourself.
Um are you big into stones at all or like
Like
I don't want
crystals.
yeah, yeah, crystals. I was like stones
I
is not a
am.
good answer.
I don't know why I am, but I am. I was definitely, I'm a kid of the like 80s, 90s, and so I had a pet rock. Like that
Mhm.
was I had a pet rock that I still have now, and I've always been really fascinated with crystals and stones and dirt and all kinds of things because it is something that is here, it is naturally made, and it has been here since the earth has been here. And that's always fascinated with me. And so I definitely have done some digging over the course of my lifetime into gemstones and their healing properties and things like that.
Yeah. Um Whenever I think of like stones and crystals, it always reminds me. I don't know if you watch Breaking Bad or not, but
Yeah.
there's that one episode in Breaking Bad where Hank he's still like hospitalized, but he starts buying
Mm-hmm.
gems and like all these
Mm-hmm.
crystals to start healing himself. And then it just reminds me of that. And then my friend he got into them again. I know that I was hanging out with him one time, and I was talking about cell phone radiation because there's a company that approached me and was trying to get me to promote some of their new boxers that protects your
Oh,
your private parts
your junk
from, yeah, your junk from cell phone
radiation.
radiation. And he gave me
Okay.
this stone, and then he was like, I got the perfect thing for you. Here's the stone. Wear this in, just keep this in your pocket, and then it can
By you.
protect you. So I was like, wait, really?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's one of those it's a form of alternative medicine. And so
Hmm.
I think that's important, to know that it's really seen an upsurge in popularity in recent years because we are reaching an alternative time, I think, on the whole as a collective, I'm hoping. And scientifically speaking, there is no evidence that crystal healing or anything can be used to cure diseases or anything else because there's no proof in that. But to that, I always think like there was a lot of things 100, 200 years ago that we didn't have proof of, that we now have proof of, that people were staunchly like, no, that can't be real because we don't know anything about it. And so I really try to keep an open mind on everything. I found myself kind of getting really like overwhelmed with the crystals and wanting to buy so many, and like you can really get lost in there. So I've limited myself to just the crystals that I feel like I gravitate towards, and when I'm done with crystals, I try to pass them on to other people so that I don't get a huge collection because I was starting to get a little crazy with them.
Gotcha. When you do, you said that you feel connected to them. Can you explain like what you mean by that?
It's hard to explain, really. Like I said, I've always had an affinity for rocks and stones. I always collected, rocks and stones and seashells. I'm a huge collector. Every beach I go to for the first time, if it's the first time I've been to a beach, I comb the beach looking for one seashell that I'm going to take back home with me that just is going to represent this beach that I've been to.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it is. I know that even back, in ancient Egypt, they were all about crystals and turquoise and carnelian and things like that to ward off illnesses and negative energy. So this isn't a new thing. But for me, it's in the same way of saying like what makes someone want to gravitate towards being a vegan. They just feel that like that's beneficial to them and they believe in the cause and they want to show it by doing that. So this is kind of the same thing for me. I just feel a calling to, at least have and respect the crystals and the stones that we have. And even if I am only using things for paperweight, it's really cool for me to know what the stone's supposed properties are and things like that and all the concepts that are behind them because it is kind of a philosophy.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I totally understand that. And I think that when you do think of like other types of medicines out there, it's crazy to think of how people treat things around the world. I know that there was the Netflix series. It was Zach Efron like just traveling the world,
Mm-hmm.
and he did some ritual. I forgot where he went, but he did some ritual where he was basically making. He had to get into like a homemade sauna, and they were boiling
Oh.
water, and they put some leaves over it, and then that,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what it was supposed to do, but it was supposed to like heal him of something. And that type of stuff I find fascinating because
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy how like, well, it's just fascinating how other people around the world treat things, or like their philosophies of like what you can do to get uh, better energy to you. It's just fascinating of like the methodologies out there.
Absolutely. I'm a huge traveler. I love peeking into other cultures and seeing how they do things, and I think it definitely requires some sort of it is a cause and effect. If you're in a place where you don't have access to western medicine and traditional medicine and doctors and things like that, you do need to think outside of the box. You do need to get creative, and that may work for them. It might not work for you because you may have all these hangups about certain things, but I know there's been studies in London and things like that, and placebo effects are often thrown around and talked about this, but they did crystal healing for people and who were sick and received this type of treatment of being healed through Reiki or crystal healing. And they all reported to feel better after undergoing crystal healing treatment, even though there's no scientific proof of that. I think you really have to do what works for you. And I love trying new things from other cultures when I go. I really love being fully immersed. And I've never felt like there's anything that I've seen or learned that I've been like, that's just too, I can't understand that. I can't get behind that. I've been very open minded. And I think you do need to have a very open mind to kind of see the benefit for other people.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Don't you can't knock it until you try it. Like
Mm-hmm.
if there's one thing that I've learned is that it's I don't like talking down on something if I never tried it before.
Absolutely. I think that's a great way to be. We're very quick to judge and fear the things that we don't know. And fear is really powerful emotion, especially when it comes from ego of thinking I'm better, I have more, my way is right. That will absolutely stop you because mental, just your mental state can affect so much stuff. Yeah, I don't know if you've read, but studies about people who even have really terrible things like cancer, when they reframe their mindset and they believe they're going to have a chance, they believe they're going to beat cancer, their odds dramatically increase just because they have the right mindset. The patients who end up kind of just being like, no, you know what, this is my fate and I'm doomed, they watch their health decline very quickly. And so I do think your state of mind has a lot to do with how much you're going to receive from something. If you go in there with a judgy kind of attitude, you might not kind of see the benefit from their point of view.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that. That like it doesn't even have to be about like health or healing. That's like entering any situation. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't study for an exam, if you go in there with the attitude of okay, I didn't study enough, I'm gonna fail anyways. Like then you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's always beneficial to have some shining light out there because it gives you kind of like it boosts your
Gives you hope.
yeah the hope the positive energy. And for me, like even when I was trying to get in, well, scratch that. Even when I was like even when I was like doing interviews, like if I walk in there all nervous,
Mm-hmm.
then that just makes me stutter more, it makes
That
me
energy.
choke up my words. But like for me, like when I like go into interviews now, it's always beneficial for me is to always take 5 minutes before, sit there, meditate for a little bit, deep breaths, tell myself that I got this, it's gonna go good,
Mm-hmm.
and you just have to calm yourself down, kind of hype yourself up in a way.
Yeah.
But
The
breathing is
best.
just like amazing.
Absolutely. And for me, I'm one of those people who very strangely it takes a lot to embarrass me. It takes a lot to make me nervous. I don't know. There's I'm missing that gene. And so when I was doing interviews,
Wait, give
everyone was
me.
trying.
Can you go back? I'm sorry. The mic.
Yes.
Yeah, the mic just went all like robot.
Oh, okay.
So you can start back up. And like, you said that it's hard to embarrass you.
Yes. So I am one of those people who it is hard to embarrass or make nervous. I don't really get nervous. I don't really get embarrassed. I don't know if it's I have no idea why. Like I said, I think I'm missing that gene. And for work I do talk to large crowds of people. I'm doing a lot of public speaking and empowerment speaking. And the one thing I was super scared about when I got out of college was everyone told me it's gonna be really hard to get a job. It's gonna be super hard to get a job and everyone's trying to give me their tips and I was like okay, but what I did and what's always worked for me is I pretty much look in the mirror before I go to an interview and I act like I have the job. On my way to the interview, I will talk about my schedule. I'll say, okay, next week when I start this job, I'm going to, etc. And I kind of train my mind before I even get there to think that I have this job. And for the most part, knock on wood, when I go for an interview to something, I pretty much have it. I have not been offered a position at a job that I interviewed for because I walk in with that mentality of I've already got the job. You just don't know it yet.
So in a way, this is kind of like manifesting it in a way.
I guess so. I'm not,
Yeah.
manifestation is a whole thing for me. I think it's more about you were talking about when you go in and if you're nervous, you've got this nervous energy about you. And people can feel that. Whenever people get with me and we're talking about energy and they're like, I don't really believe in this and I don't know about this. I always say the same thing. When you go into a bar or a restaurant and you're ready to go out for the night and you get there and there's no one there, you'll be like, this place is dead. Like, I'm not really feeling it, or the vibe's not right. Or when you go somewhere where it's super crowded, packed, everyone's having fun, you're like, yeah, this is great. And that's you picking up on energy. That is literally the same thing. It's just being applied differently. And so when you walk into an interview and you're nervous, you're giving off that energy that you're nervous, you don't feel confident. And so you make the potential employer feel like they're nervous and they're not confident about what you can do. But if you walk in there with confidence, that projects a different kind of energy, I think.
I get that. Yeah, I totally get that. I know one thing because like when I was job hunting, it was very. It does take a. I feel like looking for a job in general, like it takes a
Mm,
toll on your mental
mhm.
health because
Yeah.
for me it was rejection after rejection after rejection.
Mm, mhm.
So like every time that I would go into an interview, it's just like okay, this we've seen this before. Interview 2 weeks later, get an email saying they moved on,
Mhm.
and I think that's the part that can get a lot of people down.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like a brutal way of like I don't know. It's just so like the whole process of doing it is just brutal
Oh, yeah.
because you go through so much rejection.
It is. And I think it's important that if you are doing something like interviewing or trying to get a part or anything else like that, you do not take this rejection personally. I am a big believer that everything happens when it should, as it should, and exactly for you. And so if you don't get that job, that wasn't meant for you.
I see
You
that on
can
LinkedIn all the time. It makes me feel better.
you can mourn the loss of that and just move on and know that the universe has cleared that out of your way to make a path for something that's more aligned for you.
Yeah, yeah, you said it perfectly. Like during the pandemic right now, it's hard for everyone, and I see
Mhm.
so much positivity on LinkedIn, and then it just brings me back. And then I was like, wow, where like I kind of wish I thought like this when I was in college looking for my
I
first
know.
job because if you just look at it like it's their loss and it's something meant for you is going to come to you, that certainly helps a ton.
Yeah, and again, you're not getting rejected personally. They don't know you. They only got to see you for 10, 15, 20 minutes. That is not a reflection of you. That's a very one-dimensional view of you, and you were putting on a performance for someone else. And so it's one of those things where I really try not to dwell in losses of things. I used to be like, I'm gonna get a tattoo that says no regrets. I'm so glad I
Oh
didn't.
god.
It's so cheesy. But I am of the mind that there's no point in mourning something that's already gone. There's no point. It's pointless. The past is an illusion, the future is an illusion. The only thing we have right now is our present moment, and it's really important to stay in that present moment and not get dragged to those places that don't exist.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Because like being out of college was kind of hard at first because adulting not fun.
Yes.
I can tell you
Hashtag
that,
adulting.
not fun. But just reflecting back on like college days, simple
I
days, just
know.
brings you
I
in a
know.
dump, and I'm like, I can't continue to think like this. But like, I can't
But
lie. Like sometimes I do get those thoughts when I'm at work, and then I'm just like, wow, at college
mhm.
right now, I would be getting home from like classes, getting ready for the gym, no responsibilities. So great.
But I bet when you were in college, you were like, "Oh, this is so hard, and I've got to do all this stuff, and I've got tests," and it's really hard to appreciate the moments that we're in
Hmm.
because hindsight is 2020, and so you can't really appreciate it because you're only getting such a small glimpse of the greater puzzle that is your life and that is your potential destiny and etc. And so you can enjoy those moments. We have a hard time enjoying those moments, I should say, when we're in them because it's much, much easier for us to pinpoint negative things than it is to focus on positive things. It just is. It's as simple as human nature. We're fixers and we really like to point out the flaws in things rather than appreciate the beauty in things. And so I bet if you were like me, you were like, damn, college is so hard when you were in it. And now looking back, you're like, ha, I miss those days.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. All right. So we're running out of time, but I wanted to speak about one more thing. Well, ask you one more
Hmm.
thing. So, if there's one thing that the viewers, I mean, the listeners can take away from this is, what's your one tip for them if they wanted to kind of like become more aware of themselves? What can they do at home right now that can kind of like, get them into the mindset of like, okay, I should start becoming more aware of myself, taking care of myself, making time for me.
It really is what I was just talking about. No matter how out of control your day is, no matter how stressful your job or your life or your relationship becomes, the act of being present can really become an oasis for you. It can change your life, and it is incredibly simple. I tell people all of the time, all of your problems can be solved by one technique, and that is being present. When you're completely present, the external forces are no longer a problem because there's only you and that external force in this moment and not a million other things that you need to worry about. And so if you want to practice being present, is really simple, and you can do it anywhere you want. A lot of people don't learn how to be present because they don't practice it, not because it's so hard to do, but just because we don't really do it. And so until it becomes natural, you need to practice. So whatever you're doing, you can learn to focus completely on just doing that one thing, is just pay attention and step away from it and close your eyes and just repeatedly in your mind say something that is positive about that very moment. And that's it. That's all you have to do. That will help bring yourself to the present moment every single time.
Where can our listeners find you? And do you have and tell us more about where they can find your services?
Sure. So I run a conscious coach website at mysoulrenity.com. So that's SOULRENITY. And we have a lot of our coaching sessions there. We've got some fitness coaches, we've got some health coaches, we have a Reiki healer. I'm there. I do relationship coaching and also conscious life coaching. Or you can check me out on my podcast, which I run on the side, and that is called Stoned and Social. We're on iTunes and Spotify and all the places that you can listen to things on the web. Every Wednesday at midnight, we drop a new episode, and it's kind of like health and wellness pulled with stoner goofiness. And so it's really good. And we're also on Instagram at Stoned in Social. And so it's like rock and roll. We're stoned in social.
I love that. Yeah, I will link that in the description. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining me. I do really want you to come back on this podcast, and I want to get my friend Connor on this podcast because I think that would be an amazing time.
It
And yeah,
sounds amazing, Brian. And I would love
hey,
it.
all right. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.